Hey everybody, just wanted to read scene 4 with you as a sort of optional bit, and then maybe model some of what I want you to do in here as a short little tutorial video as well. Oh, this isn't what I want to open. Having witnessed the horror of the night and the morning, and everybody's found out Duncan's dead. Now we have a very short scene that's really a scene that's to function as exposition or explanation. So there's some interesting explanation going on and some really interesting imagery. What we have is Ross, so he's one of these thanes, one of these noblemen who work for the king, and just some old man. And the old man says, 70 I can remember well, within the volume of which I have seen hours dreadful and things strange. But this sore night hath trifled former knowings. And what does it mean? Well, a score is 20 years. And you might have heard a famous speech by Abraham Lincoln, 70 years ago. Well, that was 87 years before 1863, which was 1776 when the Declaration of Independence was. So you might have heard that score in that famous Lincoln speech, but here he's saying how old he is. He's 70, which means he's 70. He's saying he can remember 70 years, within the volume of which time, during that time, within his life, he's seen lots of crazy, bad stuff. But last night hath trifled former knowings. So trifle, remember, it's a thing that's insignificant. So he's saying that last night made all the other horrible things I've ever seen just nothing, like totally insignificant. And Ross is like, ha, good father, thou seest the heavens as troubled with man's act, threatens his bloody stage. And of course, this is a really important image because it's about a stage which we're watching. So this is a comment about human beings acting on a stage, as if, and this is something that Shakespeare does a lot, is he refers to life as though it were a play. And we're going to see this in a later image that's really important. And he says then that the heavens, the sky, which is troubled with what human beings are doing, threatens the bloody stage. And what does he mean by that? He explains what he means. He says, by the clock 'tis day, and yet dark night strangles the traveling lamp. Well, this is a really interesting image. He's saying, if you look at the clock, it says it's day, but still it's dark outside because, it's been really bad weather maybe. But he's saying that, look at the image. The image is of night strangling the traveling lamp. And what's the traveling lamp? The sun. Because remember, they used to think, at least in the Middle Ages, that it was the sun that travels across the sky, right? And now he asks an interesting question, which connects darkness with evil. He says, is it night's predominance or the day's shame that darkness does the face of earth entomb when living light should kiss it? And wow, this is a cool image. He says, is it night's predominance? Predominance is power or dominance. So he's saying, is it the dominance of night? Is it the power of night? Or is it the day's shame that makes it so darkness covers the earth as if it was a tomb where dead people are when living light should kiss it? Wow, this is such a powerful image. And what's the question mean? Well, he's saying, like, is it that evil's really strong or good is really weak that makes evil take over? Which is a great question. Oh, sorry, I have to re-log into something. Hold on a second. Well, I don't know what this is. Sorry. Let's go back. And the old man says, yeah, it's unnatural, even like the deed that's done. Oh, so now we know what deed they're talking about, Duncan's murder. On Tuesday last, a falcon towering in her pride of place was by a mousing owl hawked at and killed. Well, see, this is a really interesting image. He's saying this falcon, and a falcon is a great big predatory bird. And what happened in her pride of place, like in her nest or where she lives, was killed by a little mousing owl hawk. So it's like he's saying that this great, prideful, noble bird was killed by this little bird. Well, what might that symbolize? Oh, maybe Duncan being killed by Macbeth. And Ross goes on and says, oh yeah, and Duncan's horses, a thing most strange and certain, beauteous and swift, the minions of their race turned wild in nature, broke their stalls, flung out, contending against obedience as they would make war with mankind. So this is another really interesting symbol, because he's saying that Duncan's horses, which are supposed to be like really strong and beautiful and really the sort of greatest of their race because they're the best horses in the world. That's what the king gets. What did they do? They turned wild and they broke out of their stall and they fought against obedience as if they were going to make war with all human beings. And the old man's like, yeah, it said that they eat each other, which is crazy because he's saying that horses were eating each other. Okay, but and why is this symbolic? Well, the servants of the king, people who were supposed to be, strong and powerful warriors for the king, ended up being obedient. So who might that be about? Oh, Macbeth. And Ross says they did so. Yeah, they did eat each other to the amazement of mine eyes that looked upon it. Like, oh, apparently Ross saw these horses eating each other. And here comes Macduff. And so Ross says, oh, here comes the good Macduff. How goes the world, sir? Now? And Macduff says, why? See you not? Like, why do you even ask? Don't you see what's going on? It's bad. And Ross says, is it known who did this more than bloody deed? And now we get that word bloody again, right? This bloody deed. Who did it? And Macduff says, those that Macbeth hath slain. Oh, remember the guards that Macbeth killed? That's who Macduff is saying did it. And Ross says, alas the day, what good could they pretend? And like, why would they do it? So the question, what good could they pretend? Pretend here means like try. Like, what good were they trying to do by killing the king? And Macduff says they were suborned. And suborned here really means paid or even maybe blackmailed or manipulated into doing it. Malcolm and Donalbain, the king's two sons, are stolen away and fled, which puts upon them suspicion of the deed. So, like, clearly they were hired to do it. Like, two guards aren't just going to kill the king unless somebody powerful. And Macduff is saying that it was probably Malcolm and Donalbain, which is interesting. And and Ross says, against nature still. See, that goes against nature to kill your own parents. That's unnatural. Thriftless ambition that will raven up thine own life's means. And this is, we saw, remember that Macbeth had said that sleep ravels up the sleeve of death. Well, this is kind of a similar image that he's saying that ambition will raven up. Will raven here is even like to consume, like your own life's means. Like, these people are going to be consumed their whole life. And then Ross says, he says, then 'tis most like the sovereignty will fall upon Macbeth. Like Macbeth is going to be king. Oh, that's interesting. And Macduff is like, yeah, he's already named and gone to Scone to be invested. And to be invested is to be crowned and given the clothing that, think about that word vest, of the king, like the robes of the king. Remember that imagery of clothing, and the clothing of the rank has been really important. So now Macbeth has become king. And Ross says, where's Duncan's body? And Macduff explains, carried to Combekill, the sacred storehouse of his predecessor and guardian of their bones. And so Duncan's body is where his predecessors are, in a sort of tomb. They'd have these elaborate tombs where all of the same ancestors would be buried, or their bones would be put in a tomb, like in Romeo and Juliet, if you remember. And now Ross says, will you go to Scone? And Scone, remember, is where Macbeth has been made king. That's a city in Scotland. And so it's almost like he's going, will you go and be with Macbeth? And Macduff says, no, cousin, all to Fife, which is where Macduff is from. He's from a city called Fife. And this is really interesting because it's sort of foreshadowing, right? Macduff doesn't go join Macbeth. Maybe he doesn't trust Macbeth. And Ross says, well, I will thither. I'll go with you to Fife. I won't go to Scone. Oh, no, maybe he's saying, I'll go to Scone. I will go there. I'll go to Scone. Sorry. And Macduff says, well, may you see things well done there. Like, let's hope that good things are happening where Macbeth is. And he says, adieu. Adieu, remember, means goodbye. Lest our old robes sit easier than our new. Let's hope that our old clothes sit easier than our new clothes. So again, this is this clothes image. because now they're all wearing new clothes because it's like a new order of things. And Ross says, "Farewell, father." And Old Man says, "God's benison go with you." Benison means blessing here. "And with those that would make good of bad and friends of foes." This is a nice couplet to rhyming to end the scene. And he says that would make good of bad and friends of foes. Let's make good things happen from bad things and friends happen from enemies. So maybe good things can happen from all of this, but it's a nice kind of fair and foul, fair is foul and foul is fair image going on. Okay, so let me just go back. And I think this is such a powerful image that we saw of this dark night strangles the traveling lamp. So let's look at this image, and we're going to copy it. And I'm just going to model how I want you to do some of this writing. I could go back to, where is it? I'm just going to pause this for one moment. Sorry, I'm having some kind of network issue. Okay, so just to model how I want to do it, so we're going to put the quotation right here. Kindle Edition gives me this citation not to do that. But let's just put, at least let's put this, the scene we got it in. And if you have the line number, you could do that. That's fine. This is fine for me for right now. Okay. Here, for the summary, let's just put something really simple. Let's just summarize who's talking, whom is being talking to, and what they're talking about. Ross is telling an old man that it is daytime, but that the weather is making it so dark. That's it. Something really simple. When you're writing about Shakespeare, I think sometimes it's very important to just have a very short sentence of summary. And now we're going to do some analysis. Ross, and I want to use Shakespeare as the subject of my sentence. Shakespeare, not it shows. Shakespeare emphasizes, or even I want to say something like Shakespeare uses the image of darkness overpowering the sun to emphasize that Ross here feels afraid of the overpowering evil that is spreading throughout Scotland. Notice how I'm focused on Ross because he's the one speaking. And you might say, but Mr. Halter, Ross is not an important character. But Ross is an important character because he's a bystander to this whole thing. And we might start thinking, okay, so this shows how when evil happens, often bystanders really feel the effects of the evil even in their daily interactions. Macbeth's pursuit of power is making everyone in Scotland feel afraid and confused. So see how I am addressing Macbeth, but also I'm thinking about how it's connected to the speaker. The speaker is always important. So this is just an example of what I'd like to see, and I hope this was helpful. We'll start on Act 3 next.